Check, check, check. Excuse me. Back here. Okay. Do I have some people on board? Let me look. Yes, I do. Excuse me. So I'm just checking my audio. You guys can confirm it for me. Who doth I have here? Scott. Sir, yes, sir. Good to see you again, Scott. Sheila's here. Finally, you have to let me know, Sheila, how you solved the problem, because all I could find was somehow at my end I'm supposed to ban some people. And of course I didn't do that, so I don't know what was going on. Hey, Jerry. Have your chord charts ready for you. Almost. I still have a little bit more to do. Should have them tonight, though. That guitar sound okay? My voice, the guitar, in balance kind of idea? To get further back here so you can see the guitar. All sounds great. Good. I like to hear that. Sound is fine with voice and guitar. Love to hear it. See, sometimes the digital gods are with us, and other times maybe not so much, but that's good. All right. I think we should get started because I want to make sure I don't take you guys into the hour and a half like things have been going. I know that's hard to do. Tony's here. Yep. Clearly, there's a core of people that keep showing up, which I really, really, really appreciate. Obviously, something's going on with what we're talking about that's of interest. Hopefully, I'm able to clarify some things for you. And yeah, I really like it. How often do you have these lessons? I don't check my email often. Arzine, can't pronounce the name. I'm not sure if I'm looking at an initial followed by a last name, but thanks for the question. So these sessions are going on 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. Atlantic time, Atlantic Daylight Time, and with Coves, every day is Groundhog Day. With oh, do you mean COVID? Or it looks like you spelled coves. Maybe you meant COVID. Every day is Groundhog Day. Yeah, I hear you. If that's what you meant, that was part of the motivation. That I just didn't want to spend my time isolated from my peeps, and put some stuff together and just kind of carry on as if not that nothing's happening, but we might as well take advantage of the technology that allows us to do this kind of stuff. And obviously, yeah, COVID equals Groundhog Day. Got it. And obviously, a lot of other people are doing the same thing. So I don't think it was a bad decision to do this. And I'm glad it helps. That's the bottom line. And when COVID passes, and it shall, we have to be patient, but it shall. Who knows? I mean, I'm kind of digging this whole setup. I might just make this a consistent, let's say, once a week gathering, where primarily all of you who are subscribed to me will get access to this. Obviously, anybody who comes upon it on the interwebs is free to watch it. But the invite goes out to my subscribers first, and then it's open to everyone else. So if you're liking this stuff and would like to have it continue, regardless of what's going on outside your house, I'd love to do it too. So I'm thinking, one session every week consistently. I don't know what it would look like yet, but it would be obviously a great time for us to always get together and sometimes do lessons, sometimes do Q&A, sometimes, who knows? We can do whatever we want. That's the beauty of this system. I just think I'm going to stick with it at some level and continue to touch base with people. And cool. All right. I think we're ready to fly. So, let me change gears here. Hold on. There we go. Steve Dempster Guitar Studio. Good to have you back again for another session. I guess we could, I don't want to call it the COVID sessions. That gives it too much power to me. But we're just calling them sessions. And today what I want to present to you is, when I started putting it together, I'll tell you the title in a sec. Well, you know what we're going to do. But when I started putting it together, I thought I could cover this in today's session. And I thought, you know what? That's going to rush it, and it's going to make things sound and feel a little could confuse you. So I'm going to split it into 2 sessions. So there's today, and then there's Friday session, both of them. Today, we're going to focus on chord building of triads, the 3-note chords. These are the building blocks of chords. And I have a few things to say about that in terms of learning it and doing some stuff and perspectives that either help or hinder your ability to know it well. And And then on Friday, I wanted to take what we did today and extend it up to the seventh chord level. So if you notice on the email send out, I was talking about seventh chords. Excuse me. Dominant seventh chords, minor seven chords, minor seven, flat five, seven chords, major seven. Like many times people ask me, what's the difference between all these seventh chords? And in fact, the way they're said and how they understand them, how people understand them, is often at its core a little bit confused. So I thought if we do this first and get a good handle on it, then when we go to the next step, as an extension, it should make a lot more sense to you and be easier to stick into the brain, which I'm all about. You know, if we can get good at one thing, that's the other book I've been reading. If you haven't noticed, I've been putting up these books behind me on different topics that are of interest to me from just a growth perspective. So I thought, okay, well, maybe you guys might be interested in them. So this one is simply titled The One Thing. And I'm going to bounce back and forth between the ideas in the book and the ideas that I'm going to talk about today. And hopefully leave you with the notion. This would be the big theme of the day. I know that many of you guys are familiar with the stuff I'm talking about. You have come across it somewhere, maybe through other channels on YouTube, or you've read about it, or whatever. Somehow or another, you are familiar with that material, the material we're going to talk about. Let me just move from one chord to another is a problem. I'm just looking at Tony's comment here. We're not even going to talk about the technicality of moving from one chord to the other, but note is taken, and I will talk about that. I've got some really good ideas on how to fix that problem. But it won't be this week, Tony. It'll probably be, well, it won't be this week for sure. And the familiarity that people have with any topic is never, ever, ever going to be enough to say that you fully understand it or that you can actually use it. What do I mean by familiarity? Well, I've seen this many times. I might have a new student, and I would say when I'm just kind of interviewing and getting a sense of where they're at on the guitar, I might say something like, can you play me, it doesn't matter, let's do the minor pentatonic scale. Part of my brain always assumes every guitarist knows this in and out, but it's not true. I continually get reminded of this. So they might do something like this. I'm just changing screens here. They would go, okay, we'll do this. We go, then it's, and then, they look and feel like that. So they have had some experience with it, but they don't know it. They're familiar with it, but they don't know it to the point that they can just come to the guitar and go. They don't have to do anything fancy with it. They just have to demonstrate a comfort with the structure of it. That shows me that person has put time in on that concept. Okay. Towards today's ideas about chord building, the same thing goes on. The stuff I'm going to talk about today is stuff I know people are familiar with. Maybe since spending time with me, you started to put a bit more time on it. I don't know because I'm not with you. If you are, thumbs up. And the only way, really, to get good at any idea, new idea, to bring it from familiarity to knowledge, to know it, I'm so confident with it, is to concentrate on, for the majority of your practice, that one thing. But I think people get very confused with how they should practice. They think they seem to have to cover a lot of stuff. That's not efficient practice. Let's say you have a half an hour. The majority of that half hour should be spent on the one thing you're trying to get better at. One thing, not a bunch of different things. With the extra time in your practice, you can decide how you'd like to split that up, perhaps reviewing stuff you already know, or, you name it. There might be some theory issues you want to get clear. There might be some technical issues. But whatever it is, for a good period of time, there should be one thing you're trying to get better at. And I think guitarists have trouble with this. They really, really do, because they've got their head full of many things. Always floating around, wonderful ideas in their head, but there's too much of it, and it's not organized. So it's very easy for people to walk away going, oh my gosh, this music thing, man, it's just overwhelming. It isn't. You're making it overwhelming. Now, the counter argument to what I just said is my students tend, on average, to be 40 plus years of age. I have some teens that I work with, and I have less and less the younger crowd. And so the 40 plus, and let's even go further, if I go like 55 plus, then I start getting the arguments, Stephen, I don't have a lot of time for this. They're thinking in terms of, their lifespan, and they're going, I don't have a lot of time for this. I've got to get some results now. I do understand that perspective, because I'm 57 myself. I turned 58 later this month. So, time is precious, and your sense of mortality starts to stick, and you just want to get some more stuff done. I totally, totally understand that. But the truth of the matter is that focusing on one thing and getting really good at it almost 100% of the time has the power to make the other things that you also feel you need to work on speed up in how quickly you learn them. This is the key thing. So the argument about, oh, I don't have a lot of time, I've got to get this going, let's accept that that's a reality, but let's also accept, stick with me, spend time working on one idea, get really good at it, keep doing all the other stuff you do with your guitar world, but don't leave that one thing until you start to sense a degree of mastery with it. It's a big word. I'm almost done. This idea of mastery is not perfection. It is not you're the best in the world at it. It's simply that your ability to come to the guitar and manifest it, do what it is you intend to do, comes out of you with more and more comfort, less confusion, more and more comfort. The research shows that for that to happen, to develop a new skill, you need to work on that one thing. I keep pointing back here. This book, by the way, is from, Gary Keller. And I love it because he says what I've always said. This might hurt some people. Multitasking is a lie. When you sit down to practice, you can't multitask. It's impossible. People don't multitask. And he goes on to talk about why we think we value it so much. And it's a very convincing argument. But the psychology of multitasking has been so frequently disproven. I don't know why it still exists, that word, in our culture, because you can't do it. When you think you're multitasking, you have thinned out all your attention on so many tasks that neither one of them is getting ahead very well. It's almost impossible. Really, you're just focusing on one thing and then shifting to another, and you're doing that shift so often that it looks like you're multitasking. It's a bad word as far as I'm concerned. So I want you to take today's session and see if you can challenge yourself to focus on the ideas that I'm talking about for, again, I'm going to come back to the research. It says, it's like 1 month to 3 months, 30 to 90 days of focused concentration on this before you begin to feel a sense of, I really know this stuff now. I'm not just familiar with it, I know it. It's worth the time and investment. When you get that sense of completion from it, it does make other things you're about to learn stick quicker. So ironically, the whole process of learning more and more stuff, which is already floating around in your head, starts to happen in a more organized fashion and faster. That's the beauty of it. But unless you've experienced it, they're just empty words that I'm spewing out. So, okay, so you're getting the gist of where I want you to focus on, what I want you to focus on. I'm going to put an image up here on the screen. I think I might have just lost my mic there. Last day we noticed some up and down. There, just came back a bit. Now it's gone. Up and down of the mic. And that's it's not at my mic's end. I've had the mic tested. I think it's a digital problem in the transmission. So we'll work the best we can with it. I think it's back now. Okay, I'm going to put an image up here. Turn this on. And I'm going to kind of leave it right there. You can still see my face. You can still see my hand. Bring the mic closer again. And keep it there. That's going to become important. In case the letters are a little small for you, and I appreciate they are, it's just the C major scale on the second string, and I've repeated it twice. So it's just this. Oh, give me some more volume here. There we go. Now, can I get another octave in there? I don't know yet. Let's see. I can't. I don't have enough frets. Some guitars have 24 frets. This has 22. That's a picture of a fretboard with 24 frets. They do exist. So you're getting 2 full octaves out of that. Mine does not do it. But that's going to come in handy. Okay, just before then I start. See any comments? Sure have. Yes, a true Tony. Not much chance for me then. I'm 72. Yeah, you see, that's the way I don't want you to think. I love the fact I have a lot of students who are 60 plus. And fundamentally, the perspective is, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Look, here's the reality. I guess I'm being a bit of a preacher. I'm not even supposed to be here anymore. Because if you know anything about me, if you've been on my website, www.dempsterguitarstudio.com. Oh, there's my mic going again. If you've been on it, there's a page that talks a little bit about my story. And if you have taken the time to go and read it, that story will convince you I'm not supposed to be here. And that was at age 33. I'm 57 now. I would invite you to go and read that. Okay, so I got past a hurdle that should have taken me off the planet, but it didn't. So I'm in a different headspace, perhaps. There, it's back again. See, the mic goes up and down. I don't know. I can't adjust that myself. And the point is, you just don't know how much time you have. So don't worry about it. And it's the best. There, it's gone again. It's the best thing I can tell you is just don't worry about it. Hoping, of course, your health is okay. In the meantime, get to work. Put your energy, focus on this stuff. Doesn't matter how old. We're all on the same track. Okay, let's get this underway. I'm going to show you another image. In addition, this guy's going to stay up. The scale's going to stay up the whole time. I'll try not to hide behind it or anything like that. The camera doesn't like me moving that much because I lose focus. Okay. I would like you to tell me what this is. If you know, that's great. If you don't know, that's okay too. I just want to try to make some points about chords. This is, come on, Mike, get back. Usually if I wiggle it a bit, it helps. This is, there we go. This is a chord. When you're playing at least 3 notes, technically that's a chord. 2 notes isn't really a chord. Power chords, which are 2 notes, are not technically chords. They're dyads. 2 notes at a time, or double stops even. That is a chord. It's a triad. It's made up of 3 sounds. Now what I'm going to do, once you've had a good look at that, we're going to change it. And I want you to tell me what I just did to change it. Sorry that the mic clipped out there. I'll say it again. Bring it back. I want you to tell me what just happened as best you can. And I will stay relatively quiet. There we go. It's back again, see? Relatively quiet as you answer that for me. Just in a sentence, nothing crazy. So, your first is that. And you can play it, you can look at it and find it on your guitar. The frets are listed there, 3 and 5 on the side. You can tell what strings they're on and you can hit those sounds, and here they are. That's fine. And then you can go to the other guy and make that. But I want you to describe to me how you would describe what happened to someone else who wants to play these things. I know that sounds like a strange question, but see if you can, there it goes again. Sorry guys. See if you can make sense of it. So, what have I got? Scott, yep. C, question mark, it is a C chord. Jerry, C chord, made up of some notes. Tony, bar chord, major C. This is good. I'm glad to see this. Scott, C, and made it minor. C minor, E, and D sharp. C minor, E to D sharp. Okay, I'm gonna explore that a bit. E down to D. Almost, Tony. Not quite. Here's the point, though. It's good that you, in some sense, can describe what happened in terms of the notes that took place. Because some of you know, maybe all of you know, that I'm a stickler for people to know the notes of their fretboard. That's a good thing. But let's pretend that you don't. It's just a thing. This is the perspective that many guitarists have when they look at that kind of an image. They see a chord chart, and they see the dots. It might have a fingering associated with it. I didn't include a fingering. You can finger it however it's comfortable. But all you know is it's that thing. You have to try to trick your brain if you're a bit more knowledgeable. Trick your brain into thinking it's that thing played at the 5th fret on strings 4, 3, and 2. And then another moment later, it turns into this thing. And my question is, without the knowledge that you guys have, which I'm happy about, what happened? Describe it in terms of what you see, not what you know. I know that's a bit weird. What I would think of is one of the sounds, let me go back here. One of the sounds, there goes the mic. One of the sounds in the first chord, let's see if I can get this back. Come on, Mike. See, there it is. One of the sounds in the first chord changed, but how? Did the sound that changed go up in pitch, or did it go down in pitch? Well, if you're aware of how your fretboard works, you know that if you're wherever you're working from, if you're moving toward the head of the guitar, sounds are going down in pitch. If you're down here and you're working up toward your guts, there it is, sounds are getting higher in pitch. So without the knowledge that you guys have, the best you could say is that one of the sounds in that thing was lowered by one fret or one semitone. So we know that much. Okay, good. Let's continue. Now what just happened? I'll give you a moment to think on that. Flattened third, Tony. A shape to A minor, shifted by 3 frets. Joanna, hey Joanna, good to see you. You flattened the third of the C chord to make it C minor. Yes, this is good. You guys are describing it as musicians would describe it. But that's because either you've had so much of me barking about this stuff, or you've studied it on your own. You've been around music long enough to realize that you need to know that stuff. Joanna said it very well. You flattened the third of the C chord to make it C minor. But I'm asking you to pretend like you're almost a beginning guitar player who doesn't know that stuff. And they get presented with these kinds of images. Right? That's it. And they take it on faith that this is what I have to play. Here's the sound of that thing. So the first thing was this. Oh, that sounds pretty. I like that sound. And then the second thing was this. And then this one is that. I know my guitar is louder at times because this vocal thing is clipping out. Okay, so what happened there, again, pretending you don't know anything about this stuff, is one of the other sounds was lowered in pitch. That's the best you could say. Not knowing what you know. That is the best. You could say whatever this thing was, I took one of the notes and it sounds like I made it lower in sound. And then I took another one of those notes and I made it lower in sound. Good. Let's continue. From there to, where am I? Got that, right? Got that. Got that. Cool. Let's go here. Okay. I'm going to move this out of the way here because the frets are out. Hold on a sec. I'm going to get rid of some of these. I'm going to clean this up a bit. Keep that there. Let's go here. Okay. I'm going to just pull that over. Okay, so there's what we've got now. So, what is that? Well, it's a thing. There's a point here, trust me. It's a thing. And it looks like it's being played at the 8th fret, so I have to cover one finger over 2 strings. And then I have to put another finger, so it just, you can finger it how you wish. And there's that. And then, nope, I don't want that, sorry. That was wrong placement. I want, where are you? Where are you? Okay, I'm going to go to this one just for the sake. And ignore the finger or the note on the first string. Or on the fourth string, excuse me. Just ignore it altogether. And just visualize the first, second, and third string, because that's what it was supposed to be. So obviously something changed from the... Oh, there. That looks better. That's what I was looking for. So that was this guy right here. Let's get rid of him. Okay, that's the first one. I'm going to get rid of that. There's the second. Same location. So what happened? Whatever note was on that third string got lowered. And then another one got lowered. Now, can you tell me, just curious, it's not something you really need to know, can you tell me what that chord is? Anyone at all? E minor flat. I'm just looking at comments now. Tony, major 7. No, I'm not showing any major 7 chords yet, Tony. That's going to be on Friday. Sorry, the mic has gone out again. I know it's still, you can hear me, but it's lower. Check, check. Yeah, it's half the volume. Oops, let me see if I can pull it back. Sometimes that works. Anybody know? I'm going to check right now. You lowered the 5th and the 3rd. I did, yes, good. But you're still talking as a musician, but that's okay. Interesting that's a really good point. That some of you have become so well trained in looking at these things that you can't even remember what it was like to look at different chord shapes without the information you currently have. When you started, chances are all you got were finger-looking things with locations where your fingertips go and how to finger them, what fingers you put where. And you were told it's this chord. And you took it on faith, and you probably never asked, chances are, why is that, whatever it's called, why is it called that, and why does it have that shape? That's like the most curious thing that I rarely get asked. People just take it on faith. If that's a G chord, or this is a C chord, that's a C chord, that's a G chord, that's just the way it is. All right, that's what it is. And then I come along and I go, but you should be asking, why is it that? Why isn't it some other shape? So your knowledge base is really good, but I need you to think about not having it for a second. You're trying to be a beginner's mind again. And you're looking at these things going, oh, okay, well, it's that. And then, get rid of it, it got turned into that. And then it got turned into this. And probably for the longest time, that's as far as you could go with it. You just knew that, I had to do this. I had to do this, and then this, and then this, as part of some tune, let's say. And for some, well, I shouldn't even say for some, for a lot of people, that's where it stays. So they can make the shapes. They know the shape belongs at this point in a particular tune. They have no clue what it's called unless it's listed for them. And even then, if it's given a name, they don't know anything about why it's that. They just know it's that. It's not a good place to be, in my guitaring experience. Again, because one thing, I'll point to the book again. It's covered up right now. One thing that didn't get spent time on was learning the notes of those chords. Because then, of course, and you guys know this already, you've demonstrated it to me. if we go back to the original chord, made up of C, E, and G, you would have realized, yeah, that's a C chord. I understand where that came from. Now I'd like you to look at the fretboard that's in front of my face, in front of the mic, and look, this is a C major scale, and the chord is a C major chord. So for many of you already, you know that chords are built by grabbing. We're going to start with C. You start with the C note in this case. You'll grab that one, you'll skip the D, you'll grab the E, you'll skip the F, and you grab the G. C to E is a third away, and E to G is a third away. I'm not worried about major or minor thirds. I don't want to get confused about that. It's a third away. That's why building chords is often referred to as tertian harmony. You're stacking notes on top of each other in thirds. That's how it works. It's very straightforward. So you grab a C, an E, and a G from the scale, or in other terms, the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the scale. You stick them together somewhere on the fretboard, whether it's there, or whether it's here, or whether it's here, or whether it's here, or whether it's here, or here, or here, or here, or here. The C chord is everywhere. True for any chord. It's not just this. For singing and playing around the campfire, sure, it works fine. But if you strike yourself as something of a composer at some level, or you'd like to at least understand why this is C, it's a C because all you have in it are C's, E's, and G's. That's it. Nothing else. And if I flip that one over to the what we turned it into, this is where you can start to say things like, oh, well, you took the third note of the scale, C, or the third of the chord, excuse me, which is the third note. There's the C is the root. I'm now looking at the fretboard again. C is the root, or the 1. I'll put my finger up here. And then skip the 2, go to the third, which was originally an E in the starting chord. I'll go back to it if it helps. Okay? And then what happened is we lowered the third. We could call it, we could say that we flattened the third. We flattened the third. I know the mic is gone again. My guitar might overwhelm me at those points. We flattened the third. So the major chord, I'll come back to it. Whoops. The major chord is what it is. Those are the notes that are taken directly from the scale itself, the major scale. Oh my God, I can't tell you how important it is to know the structure of your major scales. I know I always tend to focus on C, but that's just because there's no sharps or flats. We don't want to confuse the thinking here, but exactly the same process goes on in every other key, every other scale, no matter how complex the scale may be. Any major scale, you go through exactly the same process. The only difference is you have to know what notes are sharp and what notes are flat. And we should cover that at some point too. So we took the C, the E, and the G from the major scale, because we were told that's how chords are built, and we stacked them together and we made what's called a C major chord. And when you do this from the C note and you go C, E, G, you should know, I hope you know, that the first chord that you're going to get from a C major scale harmonizing that C note is always a major chord. Now I'm referencing the idea of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. Those are the orders of the quality of chords that come out of any major scale. In other words, if I look at the fretboard, not the chord chart, but the fretboard, The C note will become a C major scale. The D note, if we do exactly the same process, D, F, and A, you skip to every third note, becomes a D minor chord. We don't need to get into why that is yet. E becomes E minor. F becomes F major. G is G major. A is A minor. B is B diminished. And then you're back to C. If that's something that's not well established in your head yet, then I would suggest you go onto my website, which you're on. No, you're on YouTube right now, but go to my channel and go and find the playlist Where Stuff Comes From, where I talk at more length about how to create chords from scales. You need to know that really well, like really well, more than you think you need to know it. And I don't mean to pick on you. I don't want to, but the phrase that my mother always used, she worked in healthcare all her life. The phrase that she used to use a lot of when working with people is, not telling it to them, but I'm saying it to you, is that they don't know what they don't know. And this shows up often in music world, but particularly guitar world. For whatever reason, you may have an impression of what you do know, but what you do know could be incorrect. No matter how strongly you believe it to be true, it could in fact be incorrect. So we want to make sure that what it is you don't know, we need to make sure you know what you don't know and make sure you learn how to deal with it properly. And one of the things that keeps showing up here is when it comes to learning where the chords come from, students know about the process. They come from scales, and you may do this and do that. But if you ask them to really demonstrate that knowledge, it's actually not very strong. In fact, many times it's incorrect. Even though they're saying words about the skill that's correct, their actual ability to play it out is not correct. So they don't know what they don't know. You've got to fix that. And you've got to go back. Go to that playlist on my channel. It's called Where Stuff Comes From. And it's probably just building the major scale. Might be 1 or 2 videos in where I talk about that. You've got to get that down. If we did the same process starting on the D note of the scale, again, we would just grab the D, the F, and the A, and we stick them together, and we get a D minor chord. Now, why it's called minor is for another discussion. This, for now, you have to take on faith. D minor. If you did it from the E note, you would go E, G, B, and it forms an E minor chord. That's all you have in that chord, by the way, are E's, G's, and B's, nothing else. You have an E, a B, another E, a G, a B, and an E. So you only have 3 notes. You've just doubled them up to make a fatter, thicker sounding chord. Okay? We do the same with that C chord. There's only 3 notes in it. It's a triad. You have a C, an E, a G, another C, and another E. That's it. It's only 3 notes, even though you're playing 5 strings or 6 strings, if you will. Excuse me. There's only 3 notes. You need to be comfortable with that idea. And the fact that there's only 3 notes means that this is a triad chord. It's not in its simplest form, but it is a triad. This is a triad. This is a triad. E is a triad. D is a triad. F is a triad. We're not talking 7th chords right now. We're talking triads. Okay. And what happened to this C major triad is the E, or the third of the chord. C is the root, E is the third, and G is the 5th. The third of the chord got lowered in pitch. That E flat that it became does not exist in the scale. We're not looking at the scale right now. We use the scale as a starting point for the major chord, And once we've got that, we're now going to manipulate the original major chord to get other chords. This is one perspective on creating chords. And therefore, again, I'm going to backtrack here a bit. I know I'm covering a lot rather quickly. In the original C chord, you could say, and it's quite true, directly from the scale, that the chord is built from the 1 or the root, the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the scale. Correct. Now, don't think about the scale. A quick way to get from C major to C minor would be to memorize that this chord now could be formulated as not 1 3 5 but 1 flat 3 5. The word flat or flatted 3, some people say it that way, references the fact, the mic keeps going out, references the fact that the third of the original major chord was lowered in pitch by 1 fret or 1 semitone. The term flat is reflecting the fact that you're lowering the pitch. It's the action that's being taken. It does not mean that the resulting note will be, in this case, like E flat. That's, as far as you're concerned, that's a coincidence. It can be whatever note it's going to be, but the action you took was to take the original third and flatten it. Let me put this in the context of something you're probably more familiar with. If you took a D major chord and you had a sense of what the D major scale was built out of, you would think on it and go, okay, I keep the D, E is next, I don't want that one. The F, oh, I remember that F is sharp in the key of D. You don't have to know that, but it is. And then I skip the G and I go to A. So the notes I need are D, F sharp, and A. Good. Step 1. Step 2. Do you know where those notes are in the fingering of your D major chord? Ignore the 4th string. We're not worried about that one. That's what's usually played when you're strumming it. Well, there's the D under my 3rd finger. Here's the F sharp under my 2nd, and here's the A. Then you remember this discussion that Steve's having with you, and you remember, take any major chord that I know and lower the 3rd. You've got to know where it is. F sharp is the 3rd of the D major scale, and I need the 1, the 3, and the 5 from that scale to make this chord. I lower the 3rd of it, some refingering now, put that back on A and lower the 3rd, see? So the F sharp, which was here in the 2nd fret, becomes F natural. There. So here's a good example of when you flatten the 3rd or lower the 3rd, the resulting note is not necessarily technically a flat note. It's just the action you took. It's just a terminology that has evolved over time. So you take the major chord and you flatten the 3rd, keep everything else the same. Usually means you have to refinger things a lot. And you get your D minor chord. Easy. If you knew that up here, that's a C major chord right there. Maybe somebody showed it to you, you played it in a song, you just happened to remember that that's a C major chord. It has a C note, an E note, and a G. The C is on the 8th fret, the E is on the 9th on the 3rd string, and the G is on the 2nd string, 8th fret as well. So C, E, and G. Oh yeah, take the 3rd of the major chord, lower it by 1 fret, and I get C minor. Well, where's my 3rd? Oh, it's under my 2nd finger. Had a brain fart there. It's under my second finger on the third string. So lower it, Steve. I can, and I just have to bar now. See, I was there. Watch the first finger. Mic just went out again. There's the first finger. And I can lower this note by 1 fret, which is really awkward, so don't do it. Just use 1 finger to do the whole thing. Now I've got C minor. So what you've got floating in your head right now is a formula, 2 of them. For a major scale, 1, 3, 5. It comes directly from the major. For a major chord, 1, 3, 5, it comes directly from the major scale. From there, you now start to manipulate that chord based on formulas that you have memorized. And the first one is 1, 3, 5 for the C major, 1, 3, 5 for the C. I keep trying to repeat it when the mic is on for you. 1, 3, 5 for C major, 1 flat 3, 5 for C minor. Now, I'm going to go back and look at all the confusing questions you probably have and see where things are going here. I'm not going to look at that. That's it. That's good. No major sevenths. Don't worry about the flat 5s and stuff yet, Jerry. We'll deal with that. C, E, G, Tony. I find it easier to see the notes on my actual guitar than on diagrams. That's good. That's fine. I mean, you don't have, that's because they're being shown to you this way, right? If I go back, everything's being shown. The chords are being shown this way, and the scales are being shown that way. Yep, that can get a bit confusing at times. I understand that. But, you know, you get used to it. Becomes minor. Yes, I play this bar chord. This as a bar. Yeah, you can, but even when you do, if you play, you're talking about this C chord, if you play it out as a bar chord, it's no different. You still have only 3 notes in it, my friend. You have a C, a G, another C, there's the E under the second finger, there's the other G, and there's the other C. They're all 6 strings are just playing 3 notes. You've duplicated those. I'm just trying to keep it down to the simplest form. Then you fill it out to strum around the campfire. Or you don't. Maybe that's the thing you need in the tune that you're playing. You don't need all this, right? People do react to this kind of material a lot based on the history they have with material. So I understand that. But you still only had 3 notes. You always had 3 notes there. Once you start removing fingers, though, they turn into other chords, like 7th chords, and you add things and they become 9th chords. But as that basic form is, you've only got 3 notes working with you right now. I know this is a bit fuller. Yes, it is. Yeah. But I'm not talking about making pretty music right now. I'm just trying to help you understand structure of stuff. Okay. So far, before you get off this episode, I guess, you need to start walking around and hold these 2 formulas in your head. I've got one more to tell you. You need 1, 3, 5 from the major scale to establish a major chord. That's how a major chord is built. From there, you can now disregard the scale, and now you have the chord, C major in this case, and you now have a formula that you can quickly apply to that chord to convert it into the chord C minor. What is that formula? It's 1 flat 3, 5. What's the requirement for you to be able to do that? You need to know where the 1 note is, or the root. You need to know where the 3rd is, and the 5th. Once you find the 3rd, and this may take some time, but it's well worth it, then you lower it or you flatten it. That's the only difference between a major and a minor chord with the same root. Really good example of that Any music would be a plus. You take an E major chord. Well, pretend you know, I hope you know maybe, the E major scale. It would be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. How do I know that? I've said it a lot. I've played in that key a lot. I've seen it written out a lot. It's just a game of frequency. That's it. There's no mystery going on. And then you can actually study it so that you could name the notes of the scale without having played in it very much or have had any experience with it. But those are the notes. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Done. What's the root or the one? It's E. That's no big deal. Skip the F sharp, go to a G sharp. Got that. Skip the A, go to B. So for an E major chord, I need E, G sharp, and B. That's what I need. Here's my E chord. I'm going to change screens here. Here's my E chord, the big one you like to play. I'm telling you right now, you only have 3 notes in that chord, even though you're hitting all 6 strings. You have an E, a B, another E, a G sharp, just one of them, a B, and an E. If you add them all up, you've only got E, G sharp, and B. What's the third of the E major scale? You go, okay, let me think on this a second here. It's E, skip the F sharp. G sharp is the third. It's the third note in. Where is it in your chord? That's what you have to know. It happens to be under my first finger. There's the G sharp. You see how knowing your fretboard helps you with this stuff? So if the fretboard locating of things is a bit confusing for you, you just have to continue spending time on it so that you don't have to be told where the G sharp is. You know where it is. If that knowledge is not strong, then the knowledge we're trying to build up now is harder to comprehend because you were already confused coming into it. Do you see what my point is? If we can spend time on one thing and get good at it, in addition to playing all the music you want to play, all the cool tunes you want to do, I'm not saying stop that. This is stuff that you need on top of it to help you make sense of the music you're playing, which you should want to. You shouldn't play music and just be like a robot, repeating shapes and things that you know nothing about. You do not want to play that way, even though I know lots of people do. So the G sharp is under my index finger. Well, what do? I lower the G sharp by 1 fret. In this case, I can't lower it I can't just go down there off the fretboard, but because there's no fret there. So what I'm doing now is I'm releasing the note. So I go from E major, take the third, lower it down by 1 semitone. I've got E minor. And I still only have 3 notes in the whole chord. E, B, E, G natural now, not G sharp. Another B, another E. 3 notes. Do the same for A. Where's the third of the A chord? It's a C sharp note. Eventually, these things, they happen real quick in your brain. Where's the third of an A major chord? And of course, it would happen quicker if I said to you, let me build you a short course, a mini course. Send me $12 for it, and we will make sure that you can know this stuff in 30 days. Easy. Would that be worth $12? Maybe. Not for everybody. Short mini course, so that your brain can quickly go, I know where the third of A is. It's a C sharp. Where's the C sharp note? It's under my third finger. If I lower it, it becomes a C. So I have to refinger it. There's the C, and there's your familiar A minor chord. That's how it works, and that's very cool. Okay. Going back, see questions. I play this Tony D minor. Yep, I know this is just a bit fuller. Yep, that's true. I'm certainly not. Okay, cool. That's good. Now, one last point. That chord, of course, became C minor. I can still hear the mic clipping in and out. What happens when it does this? So the C stayed the same. The E flat stayed the same. but the G got lowered by 1 fret. Now you have, yeah, this, sorry, I'm on the wrong one here. You have this guy, and then you lowered it to C minor, and then you lowered the G to G flat. It's an interesting sound. That's the sound of a diminished chord. The formula, therefore, for a diminished chord is 1, that's the root, that's the C. Mike just clipped out again. E flat, which is the third, or the flat third, and then you took the fifth of the original and flattened it. So the diminished becomes 1, flat 3, flat 5. It's a formula you hold in your head. Major scale, or major chord, 1, 3, 5. Minor chord, 1, flat 3, 5. Diminished chord, 1, flat 3, flat 5. If you change the C, come on, Mike. If you change the C, you've changed the chord, so we can't do that. And, you know, if you keep on manipulating things more and more, you eventually go into another chord, another key. I don't want you to get too carried away with it. So you have the C, you have C minor by flattening the third, and you have C diminished by flattening the third and flattening the fifth. The formulas are 1, 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5 for minor, 1, flat 3, flat 5 for diminished. It's not hard. Now let's put that into practice for a second. See what we can do with it. Let's take the D chord again. Just the top 3 strings, the D chord. There's the mic, it's back. We already lowered the third and made it into D minor. Now, where's the fifth of the original chord? The fifth hasn't changed in both of them, by the way, so you could start with the D minor. But where's the fifth in the original chord? It's right here on the third string. That's the A. How do I know it? I'm talking about a D major chord. I need to be able to visualize a D major scale. The scale is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. How do I know that? I've practiced it a lot. I've spent a lot of time working on one thing, but that one thing allows me to bark it off like this. I can go D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and it sounds like this. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Oh my God, that's a major scale, Steve. You need to know it. You need to know it in your bones. Therefore, when we talk about the D chord, you can say, from that scale, I know that I need the 1, the 3, and the 5. So I need D, F sharp, and A. And I've got them. I've got the D under my third, F sharp under my second, A under my first. I'm going to lower the third, 1, flat 3, 5. And I've got, D minor. I hope my burp didn't come across. If it did, I apologize. Happens. We're live. D minor. Now I'm going to take the fifth and lower it. Now I can just bar now and do this. There. You've just changed something you really know well, this, probably this too, into something you know less well. But that sound is going to show up in a lot of music, one way or the other. And of course, some people will choose not to buy certain music because it's full of chords that they don't know. There's no reason for that. It's not a good plan to talk in those terms. Come on, Mike, come back. There we go. It's not a good thing to talk like that. Now you've got a D diminished chord. You can do this process with any major chord you currently know. But be aware that, for example, I'll give you a really good situation that you have to look out for. Let's do this with your regular C chord. I know you're not going to play the minor that I'm going to come up with. Watch this. Okay, there's C. What's the third of a C major scale? It's E. Where's the E in the chord? And I'm not playing the sixth string. We'll keep that out of the mix. Oh, there's an E here. Yes. So I'm going to lower it, right? Yes. So some weird refingering. There, I lowered it. And I've got C minor, right? Yes. Now watch this. I'm going to now, it's hard to see it there. I'm going to hit that high E. Ooh, something's not right. Ah, I lowered one of the E's, but I can't lower the open E. Open first string. That was already in the C chord. I can't lower that guy, so I'm not going to play it. So now my C minor, I'm not drawing this out for you, you don't need it. There's C minor. C is under my pinky, flattened third is under my index, another C is under my second finger, and the G is just open. From that shape, I can't lower the fifth any further to get a diminished chord because it's already open. So I'm stuck there. There's nothing more I can manipulate unless I took the lower G down here and flattened it. I could do that, but it's going to sound terrible. As a diminished sound, it's not sounding. Technically, it's correct, but it's not a good sound. So what you would do is find another fingering for it. That's what you do. So we find C minor like this, or like your bar form if you like, C minor. Okay. And you go and say to yourself, well, where's the third of the chord? Let's do it as a bar chord. Well, that's a C. That's a fifth. That's a root. There's the third. Sorry, I do want the fifth. I'm going to keep the third where it is. There's the fifth. I have to lower it. It's under my third finger. I have to lower it by 1 fret, so it's going to require some refingering here. There's the diminished chord. My hope here is to empower you to explore this stuff. How do I describe it to you? I always say go in the sandbox. Go in there. Play around with these 3 formulas. Find a major chord that you currently know. Make sure you know the notes that make it up, how they relate to the scale that the original major chord came from, the major scale. Know where the 1 or the root is, the third and the fifth. Go and flatten the third or all the thirds that happen to be in your particular chord. You have to lower both, or you'll have to eliminate one of them and just lower the other one. This is where you get to explore it a bit. It's not hard, but you have to explore it, not just keep waiting for somebody to show you how to do it. You've got to generate it out of your own juice of interest to figure it out. It sticks better. It's like eating good porridge in the morning. It sticks, as they say, to the ribs, far better than cold cereal will ever do. Hot cereal is much better for you, in my opinion. And you do the same. Then you take the same chord and you think on where's the fifth, or are there a couple of fifths in the chord that you're playing? You've got to lower them or one of them and get rid of the other. This is how chord shapes are formed quickly based on those formulas. So what I need you to walk away with tonight is 1, 3, 5 from the major scale. Then forget about the scale. I've got 1, 3, 5. That's the formula for any major chord. Doesn't matter how many numbers of those notes are in the chord, there's only 3 of them. 1, 3, 5. C, E, G in our case. Then the second formula is 1 flat 3, 5. That means find the third of the major chord, which came from the major scale, and flatten that or lower it by 1 fret or a semitone, and turns it into E flat. So the minor chord, C minor, becomes C, E flat, G. Then take the fifth of that minor chord and lower it. You're almost making a minor chord more minor in a way. We just call it diminished. So that's the G, and you've got to lower it by 1 fret to make it G flat. So the diminished formula is 1 flat 3 flat 5. I need you to be practicing that and thinking on it for Friday's session, because it's going to come in super duper handy when we extend this chord thinking not just to 3 notes, which we start with, but to 4 notes. And that's where all the 7th chords reside. Remember I talked about the weird language we use in music where 3 notes is called a triad in music. 4-note chords are called 7th chords. It's because the 7th note has been added to the triad. That'll become painfully clear to you on Friday. That's what happens. But we call them 7th chords. Why aren't we calling them tetrads or quatrains? I don't know. Something to do with 4. A 7th chord, I know what it means. It's a 4-note chord, but it's just one of those weird language things. Okay. There's our first step in getting some handle on building chords, but from the point of view of knowing the major scale so well that it becomes the source of how those formulas get written. The 1 flat 3 5 only makes sense in terms of knowing that it was originally 1 3 5. That came from the major scale. This is why I keep saying everything you do in music stems from and moves back to the major scale. If the longer you put off knowing that sucker, the longer you're going to stay confused. And there's so many different ways to understand it, which is cool. So we've got to get started with it. It becomes the source of what a lot of theory is based on, the expressions that we use. And you'll see this on Friday. If we will come across a chord like C dominant 7, and the notes are C, E, G, and B flat, and the formula is 1 3 5 flat 7, your brain's going, well, what's flat 7 got to do with it? Well, the non-flat 7, the regular 7, 1 3 5 7, came from the major scale. And you took the 7th note of the major scale and you flattened it, and it became C7. The original chord, 1 3 5 7, is C major 7. It exists from the major scale, C major 7, C major scale. Then we took that information, got rid of the scale, lowered the 7, 1 3 5 flat 7, gave it a name. We call them 7th chords, dominant 7th. Those are your blues chords. And then you keep going with it. Then you can lower the 3rd, you can lower the 5th, you can sharpen the 5th, you can, there's lots of manipulation you can do now to come up with other new chords based on your knowledge of that major scale. Whew. I know I did that fast because I didn't want to take you long. So I'll come back here. Excuse me. Dominant 5th, A, D chord. Dominant 5th, A, D chord. So it's hard sometimes to understand what are people asking questions or they're just commenting on something. Thought diminished was 7 2 4 from a major scale. Well, yes, from the major. We'll talk about this. This is on Monday's session. You're not wrong. If you think about the this is Jerry commenting. He said, I thought a diminished chord was 7 2 4. What are the notes of a diminished chord in the key of C? Now, if we go and figure them out for a second, I'll just take a moment on here. I'm going to go back to my other screen. If you look at that scale and you go up to the first B note that you find, and you're going to build a chord based on that B note, that's the 7th note in the first octave of the scale, you need the notes B, D, and F. Let's go make them. I'm going to make them for you. B, D, and F. That is a diminished chord. The B is the root. The D is the flat 3rd. And the F is the flat 5th. What happens if I do a reverse engineering on that based on these formulas? Right now, what I'm playing from the chord's point of view, based on the root, forgetting the scale, that's the B. The flat third is the third of some major scale, and I lowered it. So eventually that note is going to get reversed engineered back up to an E, not E flat, or sorry, not from, it's a D right now, and I'm going to raise it up to a D sharp. And then the F, which is, thinking of it right now, it's the flat 5 of that diminished chord, and it will come up to the F sharp. Well, what chord have I started with? It's a B major chord. Comes from a B major scale. Do you know the notes of a B major scale? They are B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. It's not hard. It's just I've thought on it. One thing at a time, more than you have. That's all it is. There's no special talent going on here. My teachers made me think on it, and has it ever come in handy? It's as simple as that. But until you've noticed how handy it is, you don't tend to do it. You just avoid it. Most people do. I get it. So I start off, I'm now going to play the game. I'm starting with a B major chord, pretending that we knew the B major scale really well. So the B is the 1, the D sharp is the 3, and the F sharp is the 5. Let's invoke the formula for B minor. What do I have to do? 1, flat 3, 5. Well, where's the third? There it is, D sharp. Lower it down. There, I've just lowered it. There's D sharp, there's D. Hey, sounds like a minor chord, as it should, because that's the formula for a minor chord. Now, I then take the 5th, which is here, and lower it. I'll refinger that because that's too much of a stretch for my hands. And I get B diminished. It's a funky sound. I get the 1, the flat 3, and the flat 5. Now, Jerry's saying, I thought diminished was 7, 2, and 4. And he's right from the point of view of the original scale. The 7th degree of the scale, the 2nd degree, and the 4th degree. B, D, and F. From the point of view of the major scale, the formulation of that chord can be reversed engineered so that you're starting with a major formula. And you can back engineer it so that you can see how it becomes in terms of formula, not in terms of degrees of the scale, Jerry, just in terms of formula. That you no longer think of it as the 7, 2, and the 4. You think of it as B is the 1 of the chord that you're going to create. D is the flat 3 of the chord that you're going to create. And F is the flat 5 of the chord that you're going to create. Because that's the chord you get. It's a little hard to talk about. It'd be easier just to keep playing on it. Because you start off with a B diminished right from that scale, the major scale. And it's the only diminished chord that exists in that scale. That's why I kept saying, once you establish the major chord from the scale, I said on every occasion, now throw the scale away. Don't think about it. You're thinking about it. You're still thinking about it, and you're not wrong. But it's not the perspective that I'm talking about tonight. In fact, it's not the it's not the perspective you'd want if you were performing live. Think about it. If you needed to play B diminished and you had to figure it out on the fly from the scale, it might take you a few seconds, milliseconds, and by the time you figure it out, the band might be past that point already. They're done. Instead, what you can think of is, hey, but I probably do know a B major chord, and I know how to convert it to minor, and I know how to convert that to diminished. Far quicker. It's very, very practical to know that diminished is 1 flat 3 flat 5 of some major, of a related major chord, B major in this case. Whew. It's a good question though, and it's not wrong. It's just a different perspective. That's all it is. Do we talk more about ninths instead of seconds? Getting to the modes. This is you guys. I'm gonna be tough dad guy now. This is you guys expressing to me a wealth of knowledge that you have, that you've come across about stuff like this. I'm asking you to forget it for the time being because I need you to focus on one thing. This is me saying, stop it. You've got a lot of good stuff you want to cover. You want to talk about modes. You want to get into seconds and ninths. You want to, all of it. Sheila's got to go. Thanks, Sheila. Jerry's got it. But you're adding in too many things that interfere with just one concept I want you to get good at. And for the time being, you need to concentrate on that one concept and not try to integrate it with other ideas you currently have, because it's going to confuse you. You need to focus on the one thing. What is the one thing? From this discussion today, major chord formula, 1, 3, 5 from the major scale, step 1. Step 2, throw the major scale away temporarily. Take that 1, 3, 5 and say, once I know that and I know the notes that make up whatever chord I'm interested in, I can now use another formula, 1 flat 3 5, which is telling me to lower the third of the original 1 3 5, and I get a minor chord. Boy, that's cool. I don't know where the minor chord's coming from. I don't know what keys it sits in or anything. I just know if I can get the major chord, I can convert it into minor quickly. Very little theory involved. Just memorize 1 flat 3 5. You do need to know where the third is in order to flatten it, of course, right? It's no longer just shape knowledge is not going to help you anymore. You need to know where the third is either by the interval structure of the chord or by the note structure, one of the two, or both. Shape will not do it, unless you've just memorized that that's the third for some odd reason. I don't know why you would do that, because you don't see how it relates in other chords when you do that. And then finally, take the minor, 1 flat 3 5, and then flatten the fifth. Again, you're referencing back to the major scale, but we're not using it right now. And you've got your diminished chord. So you're getting 3 chords out of one idea, 1 3 5. 1 flat 3 5, you've manipulated that idea. 1 flat 3 flat 5, you've manipulated that idea. That's the idea. I have to get that book. It's a good book, man. It's not thick, you know. I'm going to change screens here so I can see what I'm doing. Here it is up close. The one thing. Okay, it's not thick. It's got that. I've read it a couple of times, but its point is that the very instant you start concentrating on more than one thing and not developing some mastery at it, put it between the images here. Everything's backwards. You've automatically run the risk of confusing and overwhelming how it all works. You have to give yourself space to do one thing and get good at it. If I told you, for example, that this is a major chord, it's a G major chord, and I need you to turn that into a G minor chord. Go. You need to know, I need G, B, and D. Where's the B? There it is. Flatten it. Oh, G minor. Done. No, nothing you have to think about in terms of other scales and stuff. You're just using a formula. Oh, I need to turn it into G diminished. Well, there's the fifth, so I flatten that. There's a G diminished chord. You got 3 chords out of one concept. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're going, well, this is interesting kind of in and of itself, but how does it make me play Stairway to Heaven better? Or how does it make me play whatever songs I'm working on? In and of itself, it's not helping you play a song any better yet. It's building up your craft of musical knowledge so that when whatever song comes along, you have enough knowledge about its structure, its chord progression, its key, its whatever, its melody, that you can have an understanding of how it works. It's no different than, if somebody says, well, we're going to work on the alphabet today, and you did this a long time ago, and I say, trust me, this is going to pay off in the long run. You're going to understand words and sentences and paragraphs, and ultimately you're going to understand whole novels if you want to. You'll be able to put it all together. And once you get that information, you just keep reusing it in every book, in every situation you're speaking in. You're just reusing the same foundational information over and over and over. And it all starts feeling easy. It's the same principle. We just don't tend to do it. As guitarists, we just want to get to the novel right away. We don't necessarily want to build up the stepping stones that help us understand the novel. But good luck. You're going to need a picture book to understand the novel because you actually don't know how to read. Because you didn't take the time to learn the alphabet, and you didn't take the time to learn words and sentences and paragraphs and story structure and chapters and all that stuff. You just went right to the book because the book is enticing. It's got a great cover. It looks interesting. I want that. That's what I want. I get it. I know that that's what's going on. My job's to kind of slow you down a little bit and backtrack. So, whew, that's a lot. Amazon, here I come. Okay, I have to get that book. So, on Friday, I'm going to close this down now. On Friday, we're going to take this very same idea. There's the mic back. I apologize, folks, for that all throughout the session if it was annoying for you. And we're going to extend the same thinking just by one extra note. And if you just look again, I'll take this guy off the screen. If you just look at the scale, what we're going to do is extend the basic chord from C, E, and G to C, E, G, and then a third up from G is B. After that, you're just into the second octave of the scale. By the way, that's where the 2 or the 9s and the 11s and the 13ths, that's where they reside, in the second octave of the scale. We may get into that perhaps on another session. So we're going to focus on C, E, G, B. If C, E, and G were a major chord, because they come naturally from the notes of the scale, then C, E, G, and B are C major 7. No mystery. They just exist naturally within the scale. That's why they're called major 7. Minor 7s and minor 7 flat 5s and dominant 7s are all manipulations of those 4 notes. Easy, easy. I look forward to doing it, guys. I'm going to cut us off because we're at the 6:30 mark. Thanks again. This was a good start, I think, for a little chord discussion, probably different than you expected. It does base itself on your knowledge of the major scale, so I hope that's up to speed, and I hope 1, 3, 5 from the scale makes sense to you because you need that. And for Friday, you're going to need 1, 3, 5, 7. So spend a bit of time thinking on that. Steve Dempster, Dempster Guitar Studio. I will see you guys on Friday. Thanks for hanging out with me. Should keep me busy. Yeah, it can keep you busy, Scott. It's fun stuff, though. You just have to think on it frequently, but in little tiny chunks. Just let it pass by. Oh, yeah, 1, 3, 5. 1 flat 3. I got to think about this flat third for a bit. Musicians need to do this. This is part of your craft. It's not just picking and strumming away on tunes. You have to understand the structure of it. So let's hope that all goes well. Friday it is, 5 o'clock. I'll be in touch. Again, if you have suggestions for any other topics that you want me to cover, and I know some of you are starting that, keep them coming in, and I'll do my best to put some stuff together for you. My head is buzzing. Night, see you Friday. That's good. That's how you build a muscle, my friend. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.